Okay, Bhante.
Okay. Okay. This is the second part of Anattalakkhana Sutta. I want to mention that this is a very complete discourse on mindfulness meditation, because this explains Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta in detail. In one discourse, you can see all. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta are the core of mindfulness meditation. In Satipatthana, you can find this. It is not as clear as in this discourse. Therefore, this is very important discourse, at the end of which all the 5 monks attain full enlightenment. The material form, Buddha said, is impermanent, unsatisfactory, without self. That is anicca, dukkha, anatta. It also has detailed explanation of these 3, as it is in the nature of altering, viparinama dhamma, in the nature of destruction, kaya dhamma, dissolution, vaya dhamma, fading away, viraga dhamma, subject to ceasing, nirodha dhamma, condition, sankhatam, dependently arising, paticca samuppanna. It is not mine, netang mama. It is not I am not it. Neso hamasmi, nameso atta is not myself. So 11 ways this has to be seen. That goes with all other senses. 6 internal bases like chakku, sota, gana, divha, kaya, mana. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And external sense bases. Form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. 6 kinds of consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. 6 kinds of contact. Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact. 6 kinds of feelings. Feeling arising through the eye, chakku sampassaja vedana, sota sampassaja vedana, gana sampassaja vedana, jiva sampassaja vedana, mano sampassaja vedana. 6 kinds of desires. Rupa Tanha, Saddha Tanha, Gandha Tanha, Pottabha Tanha, Dhamma Tanha. So this, as I said, is a complete discourse on the practice of mindfulness meditation. And in Phena Pindupama Sutta in Samyutta Nikaya, there is a very famous stanza. Probably all of you know it by heart. Let me bring it now to put in proper perspective. That also quite fitting this discourse. That is, Phena Pindupamang Rupang, Vedana Bubbulupama, Marijugupama Sanya, Sankhara Kadalupama, Mayupama Chavinyanang, Desanadutya Bandhuna. Material form is like form. You see, FORM is equal to FOAM. Form is a form. It sounds very, very beautiful. Then feeling is called bubbles. Vedana bubbulupama. Bubble in Pali, bubbula in Pali is bubble in English. That also very close in meaning. Then Marijugupama Sanya. Sanya is perception, is like mirage. Mirage. We all are familiar with mirage. In the summer, when you travel and drive on the road, you can see water in front of you. A deer is bewildered, confused with this water. That is why it is called mirage. Marichi. Marichi. In the case of a deer that runs forward to drink that water, because it is visual, what you call, optic delusion, visual distortion, optic delusion. When he runs there drinking, since he is thirsty, he wants to drink water which is in front of him. He runs and runs and runs. Farther he runs, the farther water goes away. Then he would stop and look back. Then the water is behind him. So he run back. So this deer ran back and forth, trying to drink this water. And since he would be deluded, he get thirsty, more thirsty and die. So that is the perception. This has a very deep meaning. Each and every one of us to contemplate, think of it very seriously and carefully and mindfully to understand how mirage or perception becomes like a mirage. Then formations or volition, sankhara, is like a plantain trunk, banana trunk. In my naive way, I bring out another simile, that is onion. which is spelled as on and on with I in the middle. On and on with I in the middle. Because this goes on and on and on because of I. Therefore, it is like an onion. Sankara, we go on in samsara because this sankhara backpack. The bigger the backpack, the longer the journey. If you use up the backpack quickly, we can shorten the journey. Therefore, sankhara is the traditional way to compare sankhara is plant and trunk. If you cut across the plantain and try to peel, looking for the hard wood in the banana tree, you cannot find hardwood. You always can find some peels, layers and layers of peels. Sankharas are like that, though they appear to be something tangible, solid, perceptible, we cannot perceive it. Although we have all kinds of sankharas, none of them can we see or touch or smell and hear. That also is some deluding mental factor. Consciousness is even worse. It's just illusion. Maya. When you see magicians, they can make you believe certain things which really doesn't exist. That is the nature of magician. We have seen so many magicians on street corners, in public places, performing magic, which we will be amazed to see these magics and pay a lot of money and spend time, energy. But eventually we find nothing. So Buddha asked venerable monks, these 5 monks, a series of questions. It is very interesting. He asked questions which he expected positive answers. Positive answers. He asked, what do you think, monks, bhikkhus, is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is that which is impermanent satisfactory or unsatisfactory? Unsatisfactory, Venerable Sir. Is it correct to consider that which is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and subject to or the nature of changing as this is mine, this I am, this is myself? That which is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and altering, changing all the time. Is it correct to consider that this is mine? I mentioned this morning, this is mine is, what in other words, what do you call it? Tanha. Tanha. And this I am means man. Man. This is the very word, one letter word in English, used most of the time in our conversations. If any one of us listen to anybody's conversation, one single word, single letter word, repeatedly used is I. I think, I go, I go, I. That is because of our man. Man. Then also the thought that we cannot get rid of very easily is I consciousness, or self, notion of self. It is so difficult to get rid of that even when one attains anagami stage, the notion of self still is there. That is what happened to Khemaka, Venerable Khemaka, in Samyutta Nikaya, Khemaka Sutta. Venerable Khemaka was sick. Many elderly monks sent another monk called Yamaka, asking him to ask Venerable Khemaka about his health. Venerable Khemaka said, I am very sick. So Yamaka came back, and I think Dasama came back to reported to the monks. Venerable Sirs, Venerable Khemaka said that he is very sick. Then they sent him back, Dasama, asking him whether he was attached to his form, feeling, and so forth. The reply was no. So Dasama went again and again. Finally, Venerable Khemaka said, get me that walking stick. I don't like you to move back, going back and forth. It's so sad. He was so compassionate. So he got the walking stick, like myself, and walked to these monks. And then they asked him same questions. Venerable Khemaka said, Venerable Sirs, I am not attached to my form, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness. I still have something called I am. I am. Then he began to explain how he felt. Giving one example was a lotus flower. Lotus, he asked, is the fragrance of the lotus flower in the petal or the leaves or its pollen, it is stalk? Where is the fragrance of the lotus flower? They said, he himself answered. Other monks could not answer. He said, the fragrance is all over. So you can pinpoint, cannot pinpoint. Similarly, I feel I am. That is what is called asmimana, asmimana. I am. Then he gave them another example. Suppose you have clothes, you send it to laundryman. He washes them using various kinds of detergents and return the cloth then you still smell the detergent smell. That is, then you have to use some other kind of anti-detergent. What do you call it?
I don't know.
You don't know it. Some kind of
rinse?
deodorizer. Not deodorizer that we use to prevent sex, sex smell, body smell. But some kind of anti-detergent they have to use. Then you bring the cloth, still there is some smell. Then you put it in a perfume chamber. Then detergent smell would be gone. Perfume chamber with perfume fragrance aroma will stay. While he was explaining this, he attained enlightenment. And those monks who were listening to him attained enlightenment also. Now both audience and the teacher attain enlightenment at the same time. This is only one incident that I came across where both listeners and the teachers attain full enlightenment simultaneously. What is this perfume chamber? This perfume chamber is impermanence. Impermanence. That is the last stroke of destroying notion of I am, asmimana. So, when Buddha delivered this sermon, those 5 monks, while Buddha was delivering the sermon, they were so attentively listening that they all gradually attained the stream entry, once eternal stage, never eternal stage, and full arahantship by listening to the same sermon. They all were, Venerable Konnanya was Ugghaditanya. At the very first time he got in touch with Dhamma, he attained stream entry. Others are Vipanchitanyas. They needed little detailed explanation. They were not Nyayas. They were Vipanchitanyas who need little explanation. And Nyayas need detailed explanation. Uggaditanya is like the lotus that is above water, waiting for sunrise. As soon as sun rises, it blooms, opens. Vipanchitanya is little below surface of water in the lake. That lotus will bloom little later. Nyaya is still down, maybe a few feet down, and need more explanations. Uggaditanya need only Nissarana. So Buddha would teach him Nissarana. Vipanchitanya need Adinava Nissarana. Nyayanid Asada Adinava Nissarana. So all these are in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and then its detailed explanation is in Anattalakkhana Sutta. So they attain full enlightenment. And how it happened? Buddha said, Buddha explained all the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness in the same catechismal manner. That means questions and answer manner, each and every one of them. And then at the end, Buddha said, therefore, because whatever form, 11 ways, he mentioned the 11 ways, whatever forms, whether past, future, present, internal, external, gross or subtle, low or high, far or near, all forms are not mine, I am not them, nor are they myself. Thus, it should be correctly seen with wisdom. Seeing with wisdom. And previously, all the five aggregates, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, selflessness, they saw logically, analytically, according to the way Buddha described. He went step by step, critically, analytically, asking questions. They had understanding of not mine, not myself, and this is without self, critically. But later on, they realized, all of them, with wisdom. What we understand with wisdom, I, is much deeper and subtler, and the final stage of attaining liberation. For instance, we all know impermanence. We all know impermanence because we are like this now, because we were impermanent. We were not born like this, we all know that. And now we are like this because we changed, impermanent. We know that. That is not enough for us to attain liberation. If that is enough to attain liberation, everybody should have been already enlightened. We are not enlightened. Why? Although we knew impermanence, even in practically, we have not developed our wisdom. When we developed our wisdom through special training, what is the special training? Mindfulness. Mindfulness. That is given in many sutras in details, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Anapanasati Sutta, and so on, in detail. All you have to see, impermanence is the subtlest form, like Anicca Sanya Sutta. In Samyutta Nikaya, there's a discourse called Anicca Sanya Sutta. That's all we need. Anicca Sanya. Perception of impermanence. This perception is not the perception that we can be deluded, like mirage. not that kind of perception. In that Phenupama discourse that this extensively just recited, Marichukupama Sanya, perception. But Anicca Sanya is not like that. Anicca Sanya is not like that. Anicca Sanya is perception, not distorted perception, but real perception, just like seeing objects in the very bright light, just like now. You see? They are bright light. Any object in this room we can see. Buddha gave very beautiful simile in that discourse, 10 similes in Anicca Sanya Sutta, 10 similes. I mention only one now. That is, in the autumn, we all understand what autumn is. It's called fall in the United States. All the trees, except some green, evergreen trees, Buddha didn't think of evergreen trees, but all trees drop their leaves. And the trees don't have leaves. At that time, the sky is free from clouds, blue sky. And then sun rises. See this combination? When sun rises at that time, anyone who has eyesight, clear eyes, can see any object on which sunlight falls. That means objects are very clear. No any question, no doubt about it. We don't be thinking that a rope is like a snake, like in the dark. But we see the rope as rope, the snake as snake, because sunrise is so bright. Similarly, when we develop Anicca Sanya, real perception of impermanence, everything we see impermanent. Everything. Without any exception. That is how we see with wisdom. That is how we see impermanence with wisdom. That is why this morning I said, when you see rising and falling of all skandhas, aggregate, with wisdom, that individual at that moment is in joy and peace, which is equivalent to deathlessness. That is equal to deathlessness. Yato yato sammasati khandanam udayabhyang labhati piti pamojang amatang tang vijanatang. We must remember this stanza, very beautiful stanza, you can find it in Dhammapada. Yato yato sammasati khandanam udayabhyang labhati piti pamojang amatantang vijanatang. Whenever one sees rising and falling, with wisdom, khandana labhati piti pamojang. Sammasati, reflect with wisdom, then that moment the person, that means there is no permanent, static, fixed object. No fixed object. I mentioned these groups of 6 earlier, internal, external, and so on. They all are in a state of flux, changing, moving, appearing. disappearing all the time. Seeing appearing and disappearing is one thing, one level of impermanent. Other level of impermanent is ceasing not to arise again. Ceasing not to arise again. This is Anuppada Nirodha. Uppada Nirodha, Anuppada Nirodha. Uppada Nirodha means Uppada Nirodha. Samudaya Vaya. Uppada Vaya Dhammino. This very beautiful stanza we recited on the funeral. Uppada Vaya Dhammino. That is the nature. As long as we exist in samsara, we go through Uppada Vaya. Uppada Vaya Dhamma. But when we realize the Dhamma, according to this Anattalakkhana Sutta, then there will be perceiving thus because the learned and noble disciple becomes disenchanted with form, feeling, perception, mental formations and consciousness, and that disciple, through this disenchantment, becomes dispassionate. We might evam pasam bhikku suto arya sāvako rūpasmiñ vedana saññā sankharesu and viññānasmiñ nibbindati. That is disenchanted. Nibbindang virajyati. Disenchanted become dispassionate. Viraga vimuchyati. Viraga vimuchyati. Absence of passion, person becomes free. And once the person becomes free, very important thing is, at that very moment, that person knows when free. I am free. And that person becomes aware of that freedom, aware that rebirth is exhausted. Natti jani punabhavo. Now, punarbhava, next life, is something happening in future. What is happening in future, that person knows now. Nati jani punabhava. From now on, there is no anymore rebirth. Rebirth is exhausted. And the holy life has been lived. Usitang brahmacharyam. What is holy life? Noble Eightfold Path. Holy life is Noble Eightfold Path. Completed. That there is nothing more to do. Na parang ittattaya. Katang karaniyang. Done what was to be done. Na parang ittattaya. There is nothing more to do. So, that is how Buddha ended that discourse. And then, discourse says, I say in English, Sublime One said, delighted the group of five ascetics, 5 monks, rejoiced in what the Sublime One had said. While his exposition was being delivered, without attachment, the group of 5 bhikkhus became free from defilements. Panchavagya bhikkhu asavehi vimuccingsu. vimuccingsu. And then, tena kopana samayena che loke arahanta honti. Honti is present tense used for the past meaning. Honti is present tense, plural, but used in the past sense. There were 6. So, what happened? Were they dead? No. What happened? They liberated their 5 aggregates from 5 aggregates of clinging. That is the important thing. They liberated their 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates are trapped in clinging. So they liberated 5 aggregates from aggregates of clinging. Panchakkhanda liberated from Pancha Upadanakkanda. Up to that time, they had the Pancha Upadanakkanda. Now they simply have Panchakkhanda without Upadana. Kama Upadana and so on. Now, they enjoy the bliss of emancipation. They were liberated from all shades of dukkha, all shades of suffering. Vimuttasmi vimuttamiti jnanam hoti khina jati usitam brahmacharyan katham karaniya naparan ittattaya. Now, I also want to conclude this talk this afternoon, leaving some time for you to ask me questions if you have any, by mentioning that Buddha, Alavaka asked the Buddha, Kinsu Devittam Purusasa Settam, Kinsu Suchinno Sukama Vahati, Kinsu Have Sadhu Tarang Rasanang, Katan Jiving Jivitamaus Settam. What wealth here is best for man, what well practiced brings happiness, what is the sweetest of all the sweets, how lived is the life, they say, the best. What kind of life is the best? Buddha's answer is, Saddhid Vittam Purusasa Settam, Dhammo Suchinno Sukama Vahati, Satyang Have Sadhu Tarang Rasanang, Panya Jiving Jivitamau Settam. Faith is the wealth here best for man. Dhamma well practiced brings happiness. Truth indeed is the sweetest of all the sweets. One lives a life with wisdom, they say, is the best. Life lived with wisdom is the best. What is the sweetest of all the sweets? Truth. Truth. This is not normally people think. Truth is bitter. They say truth is bitter. Why truth is bitter? Because we have garbage in the mind. So long as garbage is there in the mind, truth is bitter. When these monks, totally liberated from all these defilements, then they enjoy bliss of emancipation and taste the sweetest taste of truth. And therefore, in this discourse, we learn a lot of things. I think the amount of things I mentioned are very few. For you, I think, may read the discourse again with more details, and you may come up with more deep meanings in this discourse, deeper meanings. I think my part, I think, is over now. Now the floor is open to you to ask me questions. Anybody has any question? Don't be shy. I think you all are very interested in learning Dhamma.